Hey, weird finance fans! Did you know Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of college at just 23 years old to start Facebook? That move made him the youngest self-made billionaire ever at that time. And he's not alone. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Larry Ellison all built massive companies without finishing college. So today we're diving into a big question. Do you need to drop out of school to get super rich? What do these mega successful people have in common? What makes them different from everyone else? And how can you use these secrets right now, no matter where you are in life? When we talk about success in this video, we're talking about money. Financial experts have special names for different levels of rich people. The most common one we found is called UHNY, which stands for Ultra High Net Worth Individual. That's just a fancy way of saying someone who has more than $30 million. There's also VHNWI, Very High Net Worth Individual, which starts at $5 million. But with today's crazy prices, especially in places like San Francisco or New York, $5 million might not last as long as you think. So we're focusing on the ultra-rich folks, the $30 million plus club. Let me put that in perspective. If you had $30 million in safe investments earning just 5% a year, you'd make $1.5 million every year without touching your original money. That's like making $125,000 every month for doing absolutely nothing. When we looked at how most super rich people made their money, one thing jumped out right away. Most of them started their own businesses. They're entrepreneurs. Dr. Rainer Zitelmann, a serious academic researcher, wrote an entire second PhD dissertation about rich people. He personally interviewed 45 super rich individuals to understand how they think. And what he discovered is that there are patterns that make very wealthy people different from everyone else. Here's a big difference. When most people succeed at something, they pat themselves on the back saying, "I'm awesome." But when they fail, they blame everything else. The economy, their teachers, parents, society, or just bad luck. The super rich are completely different. When they fail, and they do fail often, they almost always blame themselves. Not because they enjoy feeling bad, but because they understand something powerful. Whoever you blame is who you give control to. If you blame your teacher for your bad grade, you're basically saying, only the teacher can fix this. But if you blame yourself, you're saying, I can fix this by studying differently next time. See the difference? One puts you in control, the other doesn't. By taking responsibility, even for failures, they keep control of their lives. This might be the biggest secret of all. About half of all the super rich people in the study played competitive sports when they were young. This taught them important skills like discipline, hard work, and how to bounce back after losing. Another pattern? Most of them tried starting some kind of business between ages 15 and 25. They weren't building billion-dollar companies right away, usually just small projects, and many of these early attempts failed, but they were learning by doing. Some early business attempts by famous billionaires. Warren Buffett sold gum door to door when he was just 6 years old. Richard Branson started a Christmas tree farm and a magazine as a teenager. Oprah Winfrey charged her neighbors to watch her perform plays in her backyard. Jeff Bezos tried to build an automatic gate for his room as a kid. Elon Musk turned his college apartment into a nightclub on weekends. He would host parties and events, making enough money in one night to pay an entire month's rent. Travis Kalanick, who started Uber, had already sold a company for over $1 million before he even thought of Uber. But he also regularly hosted meetups for entrepreneurs in his apartment, collecting tons of ideas and inspiration. Think about what you could start right now, even if you're young. The specific business doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're practicing entrepreneurship. The mindset in the US is unique. When people graduate from college here, many say, "We're going to create the next big thing. We're changing the world." Americans often see themselves as problem solvers. They think, "I hate shopping for groceries. What if robots could bring them to my door instead, or taxis in my city are too expensive? What if regular people could use their own cars as taxis?" That's literally how Uber was born. In America, the confidence level is through the roof. It's all about taking action first, then learning as you go. Let me compare it to how many people think in other places. In many countries, people are taught to 1. Get perfect grades in school, 2. Go to the best university possible, 3. Get a safe, stable job with a good company, 4. Work there for over 40 years, and 5. Retire with a pension. But the American entrepreneurial mindset is more like 1. Find a problem that annoys people, 2. Come up with a solution, 3. Test it quickly, even if it's not perfect, 4. Improve it based on feedback, and 5. Scale it up into a big business. This just do it. Attitude creates more billionaires because it encourages risk-taking and quick action. Here's something that might surprise you. Most ultra-rich people are self-made. They didn't inherit their money or come from super wealthy families. Most actually grew up in middle-class homes. This is really important to understand. You don't need rich parents to become rich yourself. In fact, some studies show that less than 15% of billionaires inherited their wealth. The other 85% built it themselves. But there is one interesting pattern. About 60% of ultra-rich people had parents who owned some kind of business. Not necessarily big businesses, but maybe a store, a restaurant, or some other small operation. Why does this matter? When you grow up watching your parents run a business, you learn important lessons like, customers won't automatically come just because you opened a business. Sometimes you have to work nights and weekends. You need to manage money carefully, and you can be your own boss instead of working for someone else. It's worth noting that the average ultra-rich person today is around 63 years old. So when they were growing up, owning a business looked very different than it does now. No apps, no internet, no social media. This is actually good news for young people today. You have advantages these billionaires never had. You can start an online business with almost no money, reach customers anywhere in the world, learn almost any skill for free on YouTube, and test business ideas much faster and cheaper than ever before. Dr. Zeidelman found another interesting trait. Most super-rich people are nonconformists. They don't like following the crowd. They prefer doing their own thing, even when everyone tells them they're wrong. Many super-rich people aren't just different when it comes to business ideas. They're different in almost everything. It's almost like a lifestyle for them. Some examples of this go-your-own-way attitude. When Steve Jobs was creating the first Apple stores, retail experts told him it would fail. Everyone said computer stores had to look like boring warehouses full of boxes. He ignored them and created beautiful minimalist stores that everyone now tries to copy. When Reed Hastings started Netflix, everyone said people would never wait for DVDs in the mail when they could just drive to Blockbuster. When Airbnb founders suggested people would let strangers sleep in their homes, everyone thought they were crazy. Is being different enough to make you rich? Probably not by itself, otherwise every rebellious teenager would be a millionaire. But combined with other traits, it's powerful. If you've tried starting different side hustles as a teenager, even if they all failed, you'll learn something super valuable. Not just how to create products or services, but how to sell yourself. Self-marketing might be the most important skill for getting rich. It doesn't matter how amazing your product is if you can't convince people it's worth buying. And the person they need to believe in first is you. Effective self-marketing means being able to clearly explain why your idea matters, telling stories that help people understand your vision, building trust through consistency and honesty, making complex ideas simple enough for anyone to understand. Look at someone like Elon Musk. Love him or hate him, the guy knows how to get attention for his projects. He doesn't just build electric cars, he makes them seem like the coolest, most exciting vehicles ever created. Want to practice this skill? Try selling something small first, maybe old toys on eBay, or homemade crafts, or a service like yard work. Pay attention to what works in your sales pitch and what doesn't. This simple practice builds the same skills billionaires use. When researchers looked at personality traits using something called the Big Five personality test, they found some clear patterns in super-rich people. They score much higher in emotional stability, meaning they don't get easily upset, anxious, or discouraged. When most people face a big problem, they panic. When super rich people face the same problem, they stay calm and look for solutions. This emotional stability is like a superpower in business. They're usually very extroverted. They enjoy being around people and speaking up. Being extroverted helps when you need to convince investors, build a team, or make sales. But don't worry if you're more introverted. Many successful tech founders are. They just make sure to develop their people skills enough to communicate their vision. They score high in openness. They love new ideas and experiences. Open-minded people spot trends early and adapt quickly to changing circumstances. They score lower in agreeableness, which means they're not afraid to disagree or push back when needed. Being nice and agreeing with everyone might make you popular, but it doesn't make you rich. Successful entrepreneurs are willing to have difficult conversations and negotiate hard. They're highly conscientious. They're organized, hardworking, and follow through on commitments. If you say you'll do something, you actually do it. This reliability builds trust with everyone you work with. Ready for something that might shock you? Billion-dollar companies rarely come from completely new genius ideas. More often, they come from taking failed ideas and executing them better. Take Google, for example. Before Google existed, there was a search engine called Ask Jeeves. But they were too early, and their technology wasn't quite as good as what Google later developed. Some other examples. Facebook wasn't the first social network. MySpace and Friendster came before it. The iPhone wasn't the first smartphone. BlackBerry had been around for years. Amazon wasn't the first online bookstore. There were several others. Tesla wasn't the first electric car company. GM's EV1 came out in 1996. What made these companies successful wasn't being first, it was being better. They took existing ideas and improved them in important ways. This is actually great news for you. It means you don't need some magical, never-been-done-before idea to get rich. You just need to find ways to do existing things better, faster, or cheaper than they're being done now. In America, people are generally more comfortable with risk than in many other countries. Americans are more likely to invest in products that aren't even fully developed yet, betting on what they might become in the future. A perfect example is Netflix. Early investors poured millions into the company even when it was losing money. They believed in what it could become, and they were right. The American attitude toward failure is unique too. In many countries, if your business fails, you're seen as a failure personally, but in America, especially in Silicon Valley, failure is almost seen as a badge of honor. There's actually a saying in Silicon Valley, fail fast, fail forward. Another huge advantage in America, access to investors with deep pockets. The numbers are shocking. In 2024, American venture capital firms invested over $100 billion in startups. The startup ecosystem includes venture capital firms that specialize in funding startups, startup accelerators that help new companies grow faster, universities that encourage students to start businesses, laws that make it relatively easy to start a company. All these factors combine to create a perfect environment for creating billionaires. Want to start the next billion-dollar company? Find a co-founder. Here's a crazy stat. Only about 20% of unicorns, startups valued at over $1 billion, were started by single founders. The other 80% had founding teams. Why does having co-founders make such a big difference? There are several reasons. Different skill sets. One person might be great at technology, while another excels at marketing. Emotional support. Building a company is super stressful, and having partners helps you get through tough times. Diverse perspectives. Different people see problems and opportunities differently. Workload sharing. Starting a company requires an insane amount of work. Too much for one person. Think about famous co-founders, Steve Jobs, the visionary, and Steve Wozniak, the technical genius at Apple. Larry Page, technology, and Sergey Brin, mathematics at Google. Ben Cohen, creative flavor ideas, and Jerry Greenfield, business sense at Ben & Jerry's. So if you're dreaming of that big IPO one day, find yourself a partner or two who shares your vision, but brings different skills to the table. Another tip, don't waste your time in industries that don't make money. About 50% of unicorn founders have backgrounds in business, and the other 50% come from tech. If you want to maximize your chances of getting rich, focus on industries where, 1, people spend a lot of money, 2, technology is changing how things work, 3, there are inefficiencies you can fix, 4, the market is growing, not shrinking. Despite what movies might make you think, most super successful founders aren't teenagers in hoodies. The average person on a founding team of a successful company is in their late 20s to early 30s. The CEO typically has even more experience, usually 10+ years of working, putting them in their mid to late 30s when they start the company that makes them rich. Here's a reality check. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, and Bill Gates, Microsoft, are the exceptions, not the rule. For every teenage billionaire, there are thousands of successful founders who started in their 30s or 40s. Some examples you might not know about. Ray Kroc was 52 when he started building McDonald's into what it is today. Arianna Huffington was 55 when she founded the Huffington Post. Harlan Sanders, Colonel Sanders, was 65 when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken. Vera Wang didn't start designing clothes until she was 40. Dr. Zeidelman points out, "In my study of 45 wealthy people, only 1 or 2 were in their 30s. Most were over 60, some even over 70. But things are changing because of the internet and startups. Today, you don't necessarily need a whole lifetime to build wealth like you used to. This is actually good news if you're young. It means you don't need to rush or feel like you've missed your chance if your first few business ideas don't work out. You have time to learn, experiment, and find the right opportunity. And if you're older, it's definitely not too late. Your life experience and professional knowledge might actually give you advantages that younger entrepreneurs don't have." Now for the million-dollar question or billion-dollar question. Do you need to finish college to get super rich? The data might surprise you. There are actually more unicorn founders with PhDs than with dropped-out educations. What we see most often is that successful founders have a bachelor's degree, but often nothing more than that. Let's break down some stats. About 7% of unicorn founders dropped out of college. About 35% have just a bachelor's degree. About 30% have a bachelor's plus an MBA. About 9% have PhDs. What does this tell us? Education can be valuable, but more education doesn't necessarily lead to more wealth. A bachelor's degree seems to provide a good foundation, but after that, practical experience becomes more important than additional degrees. So no, you don't need to drop out like Zuckerberg or Gates to make it big, but you also don't need multiple advanced degrees either. Not getting straight A's? No problem. There's great news for anyone who isn't a top student. Dr. Zeidelman discovered something fascinating. For most super rich people, implicit learning, learning by doing, was way more important than explicit learning, what you study in school. He explains, "I asked all of them how they did in school and college. Some barely passed high school while others had doctorates. But there was absolutely no connection between their grades and how successful they became later in life." That's huge! Your C+ in math or English might not matter at all for your future wealth. Here are some famous bad students who did pretty well for themselves. Richard Branson, Virgin, dropped out of high school at 16. Simon Cowell, entertainment mogul, left school with almost no qualifications. Jay-Z never graduated high school, but became a billionaire. Barbara Corcoran, real estate mogul and Shark Tank investor, had straight D's in school. What schools often miss are the exact skills that make people wealthy. How to take calculated risks, how to bounce back from failure, how to read people and negotiate, how to market yourself and your ideas, how to spot opportunities others miss, and how to build valuable networks of connections. None of these show up on a report card, but they're worth more than any A+ in the real world of making money. Traditional education is designed to prepare you for employment, working for someone else. But getting super rich usually requires entrepreneurship. These are fundamentally different paths that require different skills. Employment skills include following directions, meeting deadlines set by others, working within established systems, and avoiding mistakes. Entrepreneurship skills include setting your own direction, creating your own systems, understanding multiple areas of business, and taking risks and learning from mistakes. No wonder school success doesn't predict entrepreneurial success very well. Most ultra-wealthy people didn't get rich from what they learned in textbooks. They got rich from trying things, failing, learning from those failures, and trying again, but smarter each time. Think of it like learning to ride a bike. You can read about balancing and pedaling all day long, but until you get on the bike, fall a few times and keep trying, you'll never really learn. Making money works the same way. Here's what happens when you try to start a business. 1. You have an idea that seems amazing. 2. You try to sell it to real people. 3. You face unexpected problems. 4. You realize your idea needs adjusting. 5. You try again with improvements. 6. You learn which marketing approaches work. 7. You discover what customers actually want. 8. You figure out how to manage money better. 9. You learn how to negotiate with suppliers and partners. 10. You develop thicker skin from handling rejection. Each of these lessons is worth more than a semester in business school because it's personal, practical, and permanent. If you want to join the ultra-wealthy someday, start practicing these mindset shifts now. 1. Take 100% responsibility for your results, good or bad. When something goes wrong, don't blame outside factors. Ask yourself, what could I have done differently? 2. Question what everyone else accepts as normal. Some of the biggest business opportunities come from questioning assumptions that everyone else takes for granted. 3. Look for problems you can solve in a new way. Train yourself to notice annoyances, inefficiencies, and frustrations in daily life. Each one is a potential business opportunity. 4. Don't be afraid to start small. Even billionaires began with tiny ventures. Start with something manageable that helps you learn entrepreneurial skills. Many billionaires started with paper routes, lawn mowing businesses, or selling small items. 5. Learn to market yourself as well as your ideas. Practice explaining why your ideas matter. Learn to tell compelling stories. Get comfortable talking about your accomplishments. 6. Embrace failure as a teacher, not a dead end. When you fail, ask, what can I learn from this? Great entrepreneurs often fail multiple times before their big success. 7. Build your emotional stability. Don't get too high or too low. Practice staying calm during crises. Emotional stability helps you make better decisions under pressure. 8. Start practicing entrepreneurship now, whatever your age. Don't wait until you have the perfect idea. Start something small today, even if it's just a weekend project or side hustle. 9. Focus on skills, not grades or degrees. Identify skills that create real value in the marketplace. Coding, sales, marketing, financial analysis, communication, problem solving. 10. Surround yourself with people who think bigger than average. Your environment shapes your thinking. Find friends, mentors, and communities that inspire you to think bigger. Here's the best news of all. You can start applying these billionaire traits today, no matter how old you are or how much money you have right now. Will you become the next Zuckerberg or Musk? Maybe, maybe not. But by following the patterns of the ultra-wealthy, you're giving yourself the best possible chance to join their ranks someday. And here's a secret. Even if you don't reach the billion-dollar level, these same traits and habits can still help you build more wealth than 99% of people ever will. So what do you think? Are you ready to start thinking and acting like the ultra-wealthy? The journey to your first million, or billion, starts with how you think about wealth right now. Let me know in the comments. Which of these billionaire traits do you already have, and which ones do you need to work on? I'd love to hear your thoughts.